With the upcoming winter splits, I've been doing some thinking about teams that were basically within striking range of making it to the major. Teams that I think we should be looking and paying attention to when it comes to when the winter split major rolls around. These are the teams that are, in my opinion, going to be most likely to make and attend that may have just missed out. And there's some easy ones to talk about. Teams that were basically having a chance before they completely botched it in the last regional. I'm talking teams like Misfits, Evil Geniuses, K-Corp. You look over at NA, you've got 4 teams that were essentially tied for that 5th and final spot in Complexity, Envy, Space Station, and V1. Even Ghost Gaming is within striking range. So out of all those teams, I was trying to find and compare similarities. I was trying to find teams that were basically within that contention or within that grouping, but also still had the ability to, with the roster rumors and the trade windows and all that kind of stuff going on, which ones had glaring issues that could be easily fixed, and which ones could be, I guess, thrown into that spot of not only the potential to make it to the major, but also finish top 8. And I think there's one in particular to me that really stands out. And a lot of people are going to be like, oh, you're just biased because you cast them. But I really do believe that version 1 has the makings of making it into the major, as well as potentially making top 8. I think there's a really good chance that they can become a really strong up-and-coming team here for the next split, and I'd love to break down why that is. So let's take a look. So before we get into the makings of version 1 and why I think they're going to be in that top 8, there's some comparisons I want to make, but I have to go back in their history first. For those that don't know, version 1 used to be known as a team by the name of Rat Enterprises, which was Gimmick and Torment. Squishy ended up going to NRG, and then they brought in AXB, former of Space Station Gaming, to complete their third. And while at first it did look promising and there was a lot of clutch moments, this narrative that was created around version 1 of, we're going to play close, we're going to compete and play up to our competition, but in the big moments, we're going to go to game 5. There's going to be plenty of overtimes or game 7, and inevitably we're going to lose. I forget what the stat is, and if you guys don't know Direct on Twitter, he's the new statistician for RLCS. It's like 50-some% of their matches, like 52 or 54 or 57, somewhere in the 50 plus. Like half their games go to game 5 or game 7. It's insane. It's so many matches of theirs that are playing the distance when, instead of just closing it out, like there's times when they're 2-0 in a series, and if they just win one more, they'd be done, they'd move on, life is good. But instead they give us a heart attack, I get gray hairs, and my heart hurts. And that's basically followed V1 the entirety of their entire existence in the RLCS, which started in August of 2020. Shortly after, in November, after they had their first split in RLCS X, they brought in Calm, an up-and-comer, I guess, if you want to call it. Calm's obviously been in the scene for a decent amount. He had DreamHack experience, but a mechanical player that many believed, hey, once he gets a chance, he'll be notable. And it was. It made an immediate impact, but the difficulty was the narrative was still there. Still close games. Although we're seeing improvement, although we're making every single main event, that rough start was still there. The initial false split, if you want to call it that, for RLCS of season 10 was too much to hold them back and didn't give them a chance to fight for the regional event or the regional championship when it came around at the end of RLCSX. So off-season hits, a lot of conversation around version 1 about what's going to happen. Are we going to transition into a new team? Are we going to do these types of things? And to provide context to you, version 1 did want a roster change. The organization of version 1 expects success. They want to win. They want to be towards the top because obviously they're paying their roster, etc. And they wanted tryouts. And that's what version 1 did. Version 1 tried out a bunch of different players in the off season, and without giving away too many details, those, if you haven't heard the rumors and stuff, you can go back out and check some of my previous videos. But they eventually ended up not finding a good fit and ended up sticking together. And then we get into the very first regional of season 21-22, and it's phenomenal. Version 1 looks like the best they've ever looked. They're all on the same page. Offense is clicking. They're absolutely dominant, and it leads to a top 4 appearance. For the first time, we see consistent results that aren't the grid and ones that actually matter. You're seeing version 1 be this team that you're like, yes, they've built upon what they had. They're showing that by staying together and working together, things will work out. And we're like, awesome. Version 1's going to start progressing. They're going to be a solidified team, and it puts themselves in a position to go to the major. They're doing great. And despite that, although version 1 is performing well, you're seeing the same issues. The difficulty when they play against the top 4, the NRGs, the G2s, the Space Stations, the Envies, the now FaZe Clan, like when they're playing against the top, they'll go close. They'll be extremely competitive, but ultimately it's not enough to win the whole thing. And at the end of the day, winning one event can make or break your entire split. It makes a huge difference. Case in point, you can look at FaZe Clan. You then go into Regional 2, and although they get top 8 again, which is fantastic, they fall again short to teams like Envy, where they look really, really competitive in the series. It's all one-goal games, it's overtimes, but they can't clutch it out. And it's infuriating. It's frustrating. It's the same exact narrative. It then comes to Regional 3, and when it matters the most and you have the ability to control your own destiny, in Regional 3, they go 0-3 in the Swiss stage. They never make top 8. And their chances of going to the major are gone. And at this point, version 1 has to decide, are we going to let an entire season exist the same exact way? And that kind of brings us to now. We're now in the trade window, which ends officially on January 2nd. We've got just a couple days away. And you hear all these rumors circulating around version 1. Are they going to try out Daniel? Are they going to try out Beast Mode? Are they going to try out Aqua? Are they going to try out X and X player? And all these players generally have the same thing in common. They all are extremely mechanical, very fast to the ball, and have the ability to just provide offense, which is something that version 1 struggles with. They've always had a difficulty of sustaining offense and creating offensive plays. And when you go back and based upon the numerous hours of replay review I've done on them, there's two glaring things that really come to mind. Number one, there's a lot of comparisons to the team, to me, in Endpoint. If you guys haven't seen Endpoint or followed along with their season, the difference of what happened when Seiko came in and what it's done for the team. In layman's terms, Metzenaris, for me, felt like he was always a player that had to do too much. If Metzenaris wasn't playing his best, he wasn't popping off, he wasn't hard carrying the team just kind of felt lackluster. Virtuoso leaves, they bring in Seiko. Seiko alleviates some of that pressure from Metzenaris, and it also makes Relating Wave significantly more confident in his ability to move up and play aggressively. I compare Relating Wave to Torment, I compare Metzenaris to Calm, so who's their Seiko? When is Seiko going to come in, their version of that? And to me, out of all the options available, I think Beast Mode probably fits the best. But if Beast Mode joins the roster, I personally feel there can be a lot of comparisons. Endpoint has had a lot of success. They've been able to be successful in numerous regionals if they get out of the group stage. And even at the World Championship, they showed that they can be a top 8 roster. And I don't see why, if version 1 continues to do this, the same thing can't happen. Again, this is possibly a little bit of bias, and I'm not afraid to admit it. I'm a huge fan of the version 1 organization, the way they treat me and stuff. But objectively looking at the team, there is only a couple different factors that are the difference between them being top 8, top 4 every single event, or completely bottling it and depressing all of us in typical Minnesota sports fashion. This team, looking at them in the difference, if they do pull, and I think Beast Mode is probably the best fit for them, what could happen for their offense, I think, is going to be a domino effect. Not only is Beast Mode shown to be very talented and very gifted through his days at Shopify Rebellion / Kansas City Pioneers, the former Flight roster, but his offense and his ability to be aggressive, I think, is going to alleviate some of that pressure from Calm. And it also fixes the other thing I haven't talked about yet, which has to do with a conflict of interest when it comes to play styles. Over the course of watching version 1 for a very long time now and casting them and being able to see it firsthand, you can tell there is the biggest issue with version 1 is Gimmick and Calm do not seem to play the same style. There is a chemistry issue, and although I do commend Gimmick, he has gone out of his way to be less selfish on the ball, enable his teammates more, and it's been very helpful. Instinctually, when they're under pressure, you go back to your old narratives. And in this case, for Gimmick, that is being aggressive and challenging and kind of overwhelming. And for Calm, he doesn't really know how to read that. He doesn't know how to naturally or instinctively play alongside that. and it creates a lot of difficulties to where these players are no longer able to play to their full potential. So although it sucks to see the end of an era, and I assume this is happening, that Gimmick and Torment are no longer going to be a duo working together, I do think this next generation of version 1 is going to be a very exciting time. You are going to assumably see a significant amount of pressure, consistency for the first time, the ability to not only close out games, but do it convincingly, where it is not 1-goal games. It is like we're up by 3 or 4 and you have no chance of coming back, to completely bury teams. And part of me is saying this for the hope of my aging self, that I don't have to go through these nail-biting last second. Like, it'd be nice to just be like, yep, 3-0 on the day, we're done. But that just isn't the way things tend to go for version 1. So there's a lot of exciting things, and the way I compare them to Endpoint, I hope makes sense. They are looking for their Seiko, their hard carry, super talented, very consistent mechanical player. That alleviates some of the pressure on Com, which allows him, like Metzenaris, to be a jack of all trades. I still have the mechanics. I can still hit crazy shots. I still have pop-off potential. But overall, I'm just a solid player that you can rely on. And because I have the faith in my other 2 players, both Torment, who is doing significantly better on offense, hitting his first flip reset in the RLCS, working heavily on his mechanics. But because that trust is there, it allows you to, without even thinking about it, be more aggressive, be more confident in the challenges that you're making, and eventually lead to more success, both on offense and defense. I've heard a lot of interesting things from them themselves about how scrims are going and specifics that I'm not allowed to share out of respect for the team. But there's a lot of things coming through that should excite the version 1 fan base. So without getting into the specific details until this trade window is over, where I can then make the full story public if the guys are willing to let me. But there's some very exciting things coming, I think, to the version 1 roster, and ultimately it goes back to what I think this team needs and the comparison that you can make. It may not be perfect, it may not be 1-to-1 necessarily, but if you think about it in the same mindset, where Torment is relating Wave, where Com is Metzenaris, and then you also have their hard carry, their Seiko, whether it be Aqua, Beast Mode, Daniel, whoever they're looking to sign. Once that comes into fruition and they start building upon it, I think you have a very successful chance for version 1 to not only make the majors, but also end top 8 in the final bracket. If you guys enjoyed this kind of content and you guys enjoy this kind of breakdown or just insight into things, let me know in the comments down below. Any teams you'd like me to do this for in the future as well. I'm trying to do more specific team-based content and seeing if I can find comparisons for people to, like I say, start thinking critically about the way things happen. And no, you shouldn't take this as gospel. This is just kind of my take on it, and it may completely crash and burn on me, but I think it's a fun kind of theory thing. So if there's other teams you'd like me to do this for, or if there's any other ideas or suggestions that you guys have, let me know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, if you enjoy the content, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications. And we'll see you in the next one. Have a good one.